Seeing Jurassic World on the weekend was the worst cinema experience I've ever had in my life. I know many places and people have had it worse, but where I live, people are really usually quite civil. This day was a nightmare though. For starters, as soon as the film started, I found myself needing a piss, but I didn't want to miss anything, so I stayed in my seat, and by the time the credits started rolling, my bladder was in genuine danger of popping like a balloon to be the day's best jump scare. Throughout this though, I had the geezer behind me kicking my chair every time he crossed his legs, which was about every half a second, a guy constantly rustling his popcorn bag so loud like he was trying to wake the dead, a middle-aged couple a few rows away yapping away constantly, but the worst was this kid, I'm guessing around 5 years old, moaning, screaming, laughing and running up and down my aisle and rocking chairs back and forth with his parents blissfully watching the film without a care in the world. How rude. There were some dialogue scenes where I did actually miss what people had said because of the kids' noise. I mean, look, I can understand it if you want to enjoy a dinosaur film with your family. I must have been about 5 when I saw Jurassic Park for the first time as well, but you can bet my folks sort of unsheathed their swords and spears if I made a racket in the cinema. This couple didn't give two hoots, and the stewards came very close to telling them to leave, but for some reason they backed out. On top of all of this, I didn't even want to see Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom anyway. I only went because the missus wanted to see it, and after all that I turned to her and said, "Did you like it?" And she said, "No, it was crap." Bloody hell. Anyway, none of these catastrophes can be attributed to the movie itself. I did my best to focus my attention on the big screen in front of me. I'm not a big fan of the first Jurassic World. Spielberg's original is a classic, a game changer. I've got a soft spot for the second. The third I can do without, but the fourth movie was the first one that I thought to myself, this doesn't really feel like a Jurassic Park movie. So I didn't really have the highest of expectations going into this one. If you've seen the trailers, you pretty much know the story. A volcano is erupting which will kill off all the dinosaurs that are still alive after the events of the last movie, and an expedition which includes returning characters played by Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard is sent to rescue them in what is essentially the Lost World on steroids. But then it turns out that it wasn't really a rescue mission at all, and the shady folks that orchestrated the whole thing are in fact selling off the dinosaurs to rich billionaires and warmongers. Pratt and Howard are joined by two hipsters, and together they form our group of pretty bland and colourless protagonists. I am starting to really question Chris Pratt's ability. He's no Pacino, of course, but I did think he was quite charismatic and likeable in Guardians of the Galaxy, but the more I see of him, the more I feel he's incapable of carrying a blockbuster. I was also quite surprised at the treatment of Howard's character. She was largely at fault for the hullabaloo that went on in Jurassic World, which caused loads of deaths and shut down the park, and yet there is no repercussions for her actions and negligence. A stab at redemption is mentioned, but she has essentially gone from being an inept, emotionless, vulture-like businesswoman who played a part in a massive catastrophe to being the lovable sidekick. In general though, the characters felt less like people in this movie and more like vehicles to move the movie from one place to another. I was quite disappointed with the special effects in the film, which has always been one of my pet peeves with recent mainstream movies in general. I mean, it wasn't that they were sci-fi channel level horrendous, it's just that for the most part the effects are cookie cutter, standard, mediocre Hollywood CGI blah. The special effects are completely interchangeable with the tens of other crappy effects-driven cash grabs that Hollywood shits out every year. And that wouldn't be a problem if this was a Vin Diesel or Dwayne Johnson vehicle, but this is Jurassic Park, the franchise, or at least the film, that was one of the great pioneers of movie special effects in the modern age. The animatronics and puppets had the legendary Stan Winston behind them. The CGI was revolutionary and its usage was minimal, delicate and restrained. The scenes were properly storyboarded and well thought out, and a wholly creative director in his prime was behind the camera. The Lost Worlds effects were equally stupendous. There was a noticeable but slight dip with Jurassic Park 3, and then Jurassic World was released with some effects genuinely looking like they hadn't been completed. Fallen Kingdom continues this sad but steady decline with really poor digitally rendered dinosaurs, and practical effects enhanced and coated in so much CGI and color correction that they look CGI anyway. And it wasn't even the dinosaurs. Trees, mountains, dust, fire, all rendered through a computer that really gave the film a stale, sanitized feel. It feels as though the whole thing was shot on two sets, one with a massive green screen and a couple of plastic hedges for the scenes set in the island, and the second with a couple of corridors and rooms for the mansion, despite the fact that they went all the way to Hawaii to make the film. Credit where it's due, the film's centerpiece, the Indoraptor, looked great. It really did. The design was great and it looked real, it looked tangible, like it was there, it was looking at you, it could get you. But I didn't know whether they blew their entire budget on the creature or what, because none of the other dinosaurs looked good, and quite frankly, I'm bored of complaining of shit CGI and special effects in films. I find myself repeating myself again and again. It doesn't mean I'm going to accept it, and I do understand why a lot of people don't have a problem with it and see guys like me as nitpickers. To enjoy a good old-fashioned turn your brain off blockbuster, people want different things. Some people want absolutely no politics, no message. Others want the good guy to always win. For me, a minimum requirement is the effects look tangible. It looks like the dinosaurs are really there moving around. If it doesn't look like they're there, I can't get invested. I just can't. I can't get excited doing a chase sequence or a hunt for survival. I couldn't even if I tried. The effects don't even need to look good. I've seen a lot of 80s and 90s films with practical effects where the effects are actually quite rubbish. It's just that they need to look like they're actually there. And aside from the Indoraptor, Fallen Kingdom fails big time. There's lots of problems with the dinosaurs in this movie. First of all, there's too many of them. There's no sense of wonder like the build-up to the Brachiosaurus in the original, no sense of trepidation like in the jungle in the Lost World. Fallen Kingdom just grabs every dinosaur possible and throws as much as it can in your face. They're literally running at the screen, tumbling over each other and squeezing themselves into every possible frame. I can't believe they managed to make dinosaurs boring and saturated. Do you remember the complaints about the Star Wars prequels that everyone kept on whipping out their lightsabers every 2 minutes? We all loved the lightsabers in the original trilogy, but we saw them so much in the prequels that eventually people got irritated. Fallen Kingdom does something similar with the prehistoric beast, shoving them everywhere possible like some nepotistic school play teacher pushing his kid to the front of the stage. Another direction this movie and its predecessor went with that I don't like in regards to the dinosaurs is that they are like characters now. Like people almost. What happened to the animals that eat, shit and sleep, the ones that attacked only if they felt threatened or were hungry? When Fallen Kingdom isn't treating some dinosaurs like crazy monsters addicted to murder, others are individualized to the point that you're wondering whether this isn't an adaptation of My First Dinosaur. The Tyrannosaurus Rex is like an old family friend, a cousin that pops around on special occasions and bites baddies in Deus Ex Machinas again and again, with the filmmakers clearly scared to kill her off lest fans riot. The raptor, Blue, is another offender, coming off less as an animal bred in captivity but more of a recurring soap opera character. And what's with the Indoraptor pretending to be asleep, opening his eyes every couple of seconds with a shit-eating grin on his face when one of the mercenaries turns around, like a bloody pantomime villain? What is all this? They don't move or act like animals anymore, and are never shown in an environment where they are just being animals. The closing shot of The Lost World was always one of my favourite scenes in the franchise. When you see the two T-Rexes chilling with their young, the Stegosaurus herd grazing and ambling forward, a couple of other dinos here and there doing their thing. Nature in perfect balance. Such a scene could not exist in today's Jurassic Park movies. The T-Rex would probably jump on the Stegosaurus, hacking and snapping their jaws with the Steg whipping his tail back and forth in rage. It's just too much. It's too much crash bang wallop, and I tried really hard, but I couldn't care about anything going on the island. Spielberg made A Cup of Water and the sound of footsteps more exciting than anything in Fallen Kingdom. The dino run could have potentially been one of the great adventure scenes, like Indiana Jones running away from the boulder, E.T. flying across the moon. Instead it just looks like a pixelated mess. The second half of the movie, though many plot elements were contrived, like how a dinosaur containment facility was built in a guy's basement without his knowledge, and the introduction of some crazy subplots like cloned humans, was a lot better because they scaled everything down. Everything was suddenly a lot more relatable and realistic. You're stuck in a mansion, there's a dino in there. You've got to get out and make sure he doesn't. It was very simple and by far and away contained some of the film's better scenes. For the most part though, the movie just shoves too much in your face. It leaves nothing to imagination, nothing to ponder. I'll give you an example. There's a scene where they show an Allosaurus, my personal favourite dinosaur by the way, and though it was quite big, a character mentions that it is still a juvenile. So I started thinking, I wonder what it would look like as an adult. I wonder how big it grows, what it mainly uses for attack, what its hunting style is, etc, etc. That was the only scene where the film even momentarily stimulated my brain into thinking or wondering. I probably enjoyed it a little more than the last film, but Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom doesn't do it for me. It felt quite interchangeable with all these other mediocre effects-driven blockbusters. It lacks the charm of the Jurassic Park movies. It wasn't effective enough in its louder, brash scenes and didn't have any room whatsoever for the quieter, rich scenes. Those kind that really elevate a movie, like the silent helicopter ride home in the original. I give Fallen Kingdom a 5.5 out of 10. P.S. How about that auction, huh? In a world where footballers are moving teams for $200 million, a living, breathing dinosaur clone only cost $10 million. Weird.